The key turns in the lock. I hear it click. The glass door swings open, and my grandson walks into my store like he owns it. Because legally, he does. Quincy's expensive shoes tap against the scuffed linoleum. His leather folder is tucked under his arm. His face carries that smile. The one that fooled me 3 years ago. The one that looks just like his grandfather's. But then he stops. His smile freezes. His eyes go wide. Because standing in front of him, blocking every aisle, filling every corner of Petrie's Corner Market, are 23 people. My people. Marisol Garcia stands at the front, arms crossed over her chest. Dwayne Fletcher towers beside her, shoulders squared like he's back in the military. Amani Okafor, Rashad Bennett, Yuki Tanaka, Chen Wu. All of them. Every single employee who should have been out of work by now. Every person Quincy thought he'd erased when he stole my store. Hi, viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. The silence fills the space like water rising in a locked room. I stand in the center of it all, wearing my navy blue dress. The one I wore to Felix's funeral. My hands don't shake anymore. My spine is straight. Quincy's face drains of color. His mouth opens, but nothing comes out. He takes one step backward. His shoulder bumps the door. The folder slips in his grip. I watch him recognize what's happening. This isn't just employees refusing to leave. This is something else. Something he didn't plan for. Something he can't control. A woman steps forward from the back. Octavia Brennan. Her gray suit is pressed sharp. Her briefcase clicks open. Papers rustle as she pulls them out. "Mr. Quincy Voss?" she says. Her voice cuts through the quiet like a blade. "I'm Octavia Brennan, attorney representing Rosamond Petrie. We need to discuss your fraudulent acquisition of power of attorney and the illegal sale of property obtained through elder exploitation." Quincy's eyes dart from face to face, looking for an exit, looking for mercy. He won't find either. Marisol's jaw is set. Dwayne's arms are crossed. Amani's eyes bore into him without blinking. These people showed up at 6 this morning. They waited in the dark. They stood here for 2 hours before Quincy arrived because they knew. They knew this moment had to happen. They knew I couldn't face it alone. And they were right. Because 3 months ago, I couldn't even get out of bed. But to understand how we got here, how my own blood tried to destroy me, and how 23 strangers became my army, you need to know who I was before the betrayal. My name is Rosamond Petrie. I'm 74 years old. For 43 years, I've owned this corner market on Ashland Avenue in Portland, Oregon. The building sits wedged between Lou's Laundromat and Jimmy's Barbershop. Both been there since the 50s. The neighborhood used to be rough, broken bottles on the curbs, graffiti on every bus stop. People with good sense didn't walk here after dark. But I saw something different when Felix and I scraped together enough money to buy this place in 1981. I saw families who needed fresh vegetables at prices they could afford, kids who deserved a safe place to buy candy after school, elderly folks who couldn't drive across town to those big supermarkets with their fluorescent lights and machines that beep and confuse. So I opened my doors at 6 every morning, closed at 9 every night, learned every regular customer's name. I kept a notebook behind the counter tracking birthdays and anniversaries. When Mrs. Kowalski's husband died, I brought her soup every Tuesday for 3 months. When the Martinez family lost their apartment in a fire, I let them take groceries on credit until they got back on their feet. The store isn't fancy. The linoleum is scuffed and faded. The freezer cases hum too loud. The ceiling tiles have water stains from when the upstairs apartment flooded. But the produce is always fresh. The meat is quality. The prices are fair. Felix died in 2009, heart attack while stocking shelves. One minute he was lifting boxes of cereal. The next he was on the floor and I was screaming for someone to call an ambulance. But he was already gone. I buried him in Riverside Cemetery under an oak tree. Took 1 week off to grieve. Then I went back to work because sitting at home in that silence made my chest feel like it was caving in. The store became everything. My purpose, my family, my reason to keep breathing. I had one daughter, Simone. Beautiful girl with dark hair and green eyes that could light up a room when she was happy. But Simone hated this place, hated the smell of the meat department, hated the long hours, Hated watching me come home exhausted every night with swollen feet and aching shoulders. You're killing yourself for strangers, she used to say. Nobody even appreciates what you do. She moved to Seattle right after high school, got a job as a receptionist at a dental office, married a man named Trent who sold insurance and drove a BMW. They had one son. Quincy was born in 1995. I drove up to Seattle to meet him when he was 2 days old, held him in that hospital room and counted his tiny fingers and toes. I whispered promises to him about how I'd always be there, how I'd never let anything bad happen to him. But Simone didn't want me around much, said I was too old-fashioned, too critical, too set in my ways. So I saw my grandson maybe twice a year, Christmas and his birthday if I was lucky. Every time I looked at him, I saw Felix in his face. Same thick eyebrows, same broad shoulders as he grew. But his eyes were different. I didn't know then what that difference meant. 3 years ago, everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The store was quiet, just a few customers browsing the aisles. Then the door opened and Quincy walked in. 26 years old, tall like his grandfather, wearing clothes that probably cost more than I made in a week. He smelled like expensive cologne, not the honest smell of work and sweat. Something sharp and foreign. "Grandma," he said, wrapping me in a hug that lifted my feet off the floor. "I've missed you so much." My heart nearly burst. I touched his face with both hands. Tears filled my eyes. "What are you doing here?" My voice came out choked. He smiled, Felix's smile. "I got a job in Portland. Marketing position at a tech startup downtown. I'm moving here next week." I couldn't believe it. My grandson, my blood, finally close enough to see regularly. Finally interested in being part of my life. Quincy started visiting 3 or 4 times a week. He'd help me stock shelves, chat with customers, ask questions about the business. How much did I pay in rent? What were my profit margins? How did I handle payroll for my employees? I answered every question. I was so grateful for his attention, so happy to finally have family around again, so blind to what was really happening. "You've built something incredible here," he told me one evening as we closed up. The sun was setting through the front windows. Orange light painted the walls. "This place is worth a fortune, you know that?" I laughed, wiped down the counter. "It's just a little neighborhood market." "No, seriously." His eyes got intense, focused. "The property alone is probably worth 2 million, maybe more. This whole area is gentrifying, all these new condos going up, fancy coffee shops, yoga studios. Your location is prime real estate." I shrugged, kept wiping. "I'm not selling. This store is my life." Quincy smiled, squeezed my shoulder. His hand was warm through my shirt. "Of course not. I'm just saying you've done well for yourself." I believed him. I believed the warmth in his voice, the concern in his eyes. I believed he cared. 3 weeks later, he brought papers to my apartment above the store. Legal documents with tiny print that made my head hurt when I tried to read them. "What's this?" I asked. My hands shook as I held the pages. The words blurred together. Trustee, beneficiary, power of attorney. Terms I didn't understand. "Just some estate planning stuff," Quincy said. His voice was smooth, reassuring, like he was explaining something simple to a child. "Mom asked me to help you get organized. You're 74, Grandma. God forbid something happens, but we need to make sure everything's in order." I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where Felix and I used to eat breakfast before opening the store, the same table where I'd sat alone for 13 years. Quincy sat beside me, took my hand. "I don't understand all this legal language," I admitted. My throat felt tight. My vision was blurry. Not from tears, just from being old and tired and confused. "It's simple," he said. His thumb rubbed circles on the back of my hand. "This just means I can help you manage things if you get sick or can't handle the business anymore. It protects you, protects the store. Makes sure everything stays in the family." I wanted to read it more carefully, wanted to ask a lawyer to look it over. But Quincy's hand was warm in mine. His smile was so much like Felix's. And I was tired. So tired of making every decision alone. So tired of being the only one responsible for everything. So tired of carrying it all by myself. He handed me a pen, black ink, heavy in my fingers. I looked at the signature line. My hand hovered over it. Something whispered in the back of my mind, a small voice saying, wait, saying stop, saying this isn't right. But I signed anyway, because he was family, because I wanted to trust him, because I was a foolish old woman who mistook manipulation for love. 3 days later, I came downstairs to open the store and found the locks changed. My key wouldn't turn. I jiggled it, tried again. Pulled it out and looked at it to make sure I had the right one. It was the same key I'd used for 43 years. The same key that opened this door every morning at 6. But now it wouldn't work. Panic rose in my throat. I knocked on the glass. The lights were off inside. Everything looked normal through the window. Shelves stocked, registers ready. But I couldn't get in. I called Quincy. The phone rang 4 times. Went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail, again, voicemail. My fingers trembled as I typed a text. I can't get into the store. Lock is broken. I stared at my phone. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then his response. Lock isn't broken. I changed it. The sidewalk seemed to tilt under my feet. I leaned against the brick wall to steady myself. My phone buzzed in my hands. I answered before it finished the first ring. Why would you change the locks? My voice came out high and thin, not like my voice at all. We need to talk, Quincy said. Background noise on his end. Voices, laughter, like he was at a coffee shop or restaurant. Somewhere normal while my world collapsed. But not over the phone. I'll come by later. Quincy, I have employees arriving in 20 minutes. Customers waiting. I need to open. The store's closed today, he interrupted. His voice was patient, calm. I sent everyone a message last night. You what? Grandma, listen. He sighed. I could picture him running his hand through his hair, the way he did when he was explaining something he thought was obvious. I've been doing research. I've crunched the numbers. This neighborhood market model is dead. You're barely breaking even. The building is worth way more than the business. I've got a buyer lined up, a big chain that wants this location. They're offering $2.8 million, cash. The air left my lungs. Cars drove past me on the street. A woman walked by with a stroller. Everything looked normal. Everything continued like the world hadn't just ended. You can't sell my store, I whispered. It's not just your store anymore, Quincy said. Each word was careful, measured. You gave me power of attorney. I'm acting in your best interest. You'll get plenty of money from the sale. Enough to retire comfortably. Buy a nice condo somewhere. Travel, relax. You've earned it. This is my life, my voice broke on the last word. This is a building, he corrected, and it's time to be smart about it. I'll come by tonight and we'll discuss the details. Don't worry, Grandma. I'm taking care of everything. He hung up. The line went dead. I stood on the sidewalk outside my locked store. My phone was still pressed to my ear. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for the sun to climb higher. Long enough for 3 more customers to try the door and walk away confused. Finally, I went back upstairs to my apartment. Sat at the kitchen table where I'd signed those papers. The pen was still there, black ink. I picked it up and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. Didn't make me feel better. Didn't change anything. My phone buzzed. Text messages from employees. Marisol. What's going on? Got a weird message about the store being closed? Dwayne. Is everything okay? Imani. Do we still have jobs? I didn't know what to tell them. I didn't know anything anymore except that I'd been betrayed by the person I'd loved most. That first day was the worst. I stayed in my apartment. Didn't eat, couldn't sleep. Just sat in Felix's old recliner and stared at the wall. The apartment was too quiet. I could hear every creak of the building, every car passing outside. Every sound reminded me that the store below was dark and locked and no longer mine. On the second day, someone knocked on my door. I didn't want to answer, didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to explain how stupid I'd been. But the knocking continued. Rosamond. Marisol's voice came through the door. I know you're in there. Open up. I dragged myself to the door, unlocked it. Marisol stood in the hallway with her arms full of grocery bags. Behind her was Dwayne, and Amani, and Rashad. 4 of my employees crowding the narrow hallway. We're not letting this happen, Marisol said. Her jaw was set, her dark eyes fierce. She pushed past me into the apartment. The others followed. They unpacked the bags in my kitchen, made tea, made me eat a sandwich I couldn't taste. Sat around my small living room and listened while I told them everything. About the papers, about Quincy, about the locks and the phone call and the $2.8 million sale. When I finished, the room was silent. Dwayne's hands were clenched into fists. He's a con artist, Dwayne said. His voice was hard, controlled, the voice of someone who'd seen bad things and knew how to handle them. Used your love against you. He's family, I whispered. Family doesn't do this, Amani shot back. Over the next 3 days, more employees came. Yuki from the bakery, Chen from receiving, Lakshmi from produce. They brought food, made me shower and change clothes, sat with me, refused to let me disappear into the darkness. Marisol made phone calls, found a lawyer named Octavia Brennan who specialized in elder law. Octavia came to my apartment on a Friday afternoon. She wore a gray suit and carried a briefcase that looked older than me. She reviewed the documents I'd signed. Her face gave nothing away as she read. Finally, she looked up. This is definitely power of attorney, Octavia confirmed. Her voice was professional, clinical. And unfortunately, it gives him broad authority over your assets and business decisions. But there might be grounds to challenge it if we can prove coercion or that you didn't fully understand what you were signing. How long would that take? I asked. My voice sounded dead even to my own ears. Months, maybe longer, and it would be expensive. The sale could go through before then, Marisol said. She sat beside me on the couch. Her hand found mine. Octavia nodded. Possibly, probably actually, if he's already got a buyer lined up. I felt hope drain out of me again. Felt myself sinking back into that dark place. But Marisol squeezed my hand. What if we slow things down? She asked Octavia. What do you mean? I mean, he needs access to records, right? Financial documents, inventory lists, vendor contracts. What if those things became difficult to locate? A small smile tugged at the corner of Octavia's mouth. I can't advise you to obstruct a legal process. Of course not, Marisol said. Her eyes glinted. I'm just thinking out loud. That night, after everyone left, I stood at my window looking down at the dark store. For the first time in days, I felt something other than despair. I felt rage. Pure, clean, burning rage at the grandson who'd betrayed me, at the daughter who'd raised such a selfish man, at myself for being foolish enough to trust without questioning. And underneath the rage, something else. Something harder. Something that tasted like metal and blood. The will to fight back. Over the next week, my employees became my army. Marisol discovered that Quincy had scheduled the sale closing for Tuesday, 3 weeks away. The buyer was Megamart, a national chain that wanted to demolish Petrie's corner market and build a modern convenience store with gas pumps. They'd already drawn up plans, already filed permits, already decided that 43 years of history and community meant nothing compared to profit margins. Quincy sent emails demanding financial records. Dwayne, who had keys to the store from before the locks changed, keys Quincy didn't know about, went in at night and copied files onto a hard drive. Then he sent Quincy corrupted documents that wouldn't open. Sorry, old computer system, he wrote back, trying to recover the files. Quincy called our vendors asking for information. But our vendors were neighborhood people who'd done business with me for decades. Suddenly, they all had terrible memory problems. Couldn't remember contract terms, couldn't find old invoices. So sorry, but the records were in storage somewhere. Quincy tried to access the store's computer system remotely. Chen, who'd worked in IT before coming to the store, had changed all the passwords. Every login attempt failed. I watched it all happen from my apartment window. Watched Quincy's car pull up multiple times. Watched him try his key in the door. Watched him pace on the sidewalk talking on his phone. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. Megamart was getting impatient. They'd sent their own assessors to look at the property. Their lawyers were drawing up contracts. The clock was ticking toward that Tuesday deadline. 2 weeks before the sale, Octavia came back. "I've filed an emergency motion to revoke the power of attorney," she said. We sat in my living room. All 23 employees had crammed into the small space. Some sat on the floor, some leaned against walls. Sane. "The hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now." "That's after the sale date," I said. Octavia nodded. "I know, but it's the best I could do." The courts moved slowly. "So we keep stalling," Marisol said. "Make everything as difficult as possible." "There's something else," Octavia said. She pulled out more papers. "I did some research on Megamart's acquisition history. They've backed out of deals before when properties became too complicated. Too much bad publicity, too many legal questions. If we can make this messy enough, loud enough, they might walk away." "How do we do that?" Dwayne asked. "We make noise," Octavia said. "We tell your story. Local news loves this kind of thing. Elderly woman betrayed by family member. Community rallying to save beloved neighborhood store. It's perfect." I shook my head. "I don't want my shame broadcast on television." "It's not shame," Amani said. Her voice was fierce. "He should be ashamed. Not you. You were a grandmother who loved her grandson. That's not weakness. That's human." The others nodded, murmured agreement. But the thought of cameras and reporters and strangers, knowing how foolish I'd been, made my stomach turn. "Think about it," Octavia said. "We have 2 weeks. In the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. Make everything as difficult as possible." That night, Quincy sent a message. Not to me, to all the employees. "Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Final paychecks will be mailed. Do not attempt to enter the property or interfere with the sale process. Legal action will be taken against anyone who obstructs this transaction." Marisol read it out loud in my apartment. 23 faces looked back at her. 23 people who just lost their jobs because of my grandson's greed. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. My voice broke. "This is my fault. You shouldn't have to pay for my mistake." "Stop," Dwayne said. His voice cut through the room. "This isn't your fault, and we're not backing down." "We can't afford to lose our jobs," I said. Reality crashed down. "You have families, bills, responsibilities. I can't ask you to keep fighting." "You're not asking," Marisol said. "We're choosing, all of us." She looked around the room. Every head nodded. Every face was set with determination. "Besides," Chen said with a small smile, "I already filed for unemployment listing wrongful termination." "So did everyone else." "Let him try to explain that to Megamart." "And I contacted the health department," Yuki added. "Mentioned some concerns about food safety if the store sits closed for weeks with inventory inside. They're sending an inspector." "The fire marshal, too," Rashad said. "Brought up some questions about the building permits for those gas pumps Megamart wants to install." I stared at them. These people. These beautiful, fierce, loyal people who owed me nothing but were giving me everything. "Why?" I asked. My voice came out choked. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you gave Marisol's daughter a job when no one else would hire a teenager with a baby," Dwayne said. "Because you paid for Amani's nursing school textbooks when she couldn't afford them," Chen added. "Because you closed the store on the day my father died and sat with me for 6 hours while I cried," Yuki said quietly. "Because your family," Marisol finished. "Real family, but the kind that shows up." Tears ran down my face. I couldn't stop them, didn't try. These strangers who weren't strangers anymore. These people who knew the truth about family. That it's not about blood. It's about showing up when it matters most. 10 days before the sale, things escalated. Quincy showed up at my apartment door at 7 in the morning, pounded on it until I opened. "This is ridiculous," he said. His face was red, hair messy, not the polished grandson who'd first walked into my store. "You're making this so much harder than it needs to be." "Good," I said. I didn't let him in. Stood in the doorway, blocking his path. "The buyer is getting nervous," he continued. "All these delays, all these complications. Do you know what happens if this sale falls through?" "You don't get your commission?" I asked. His eyes narrowed. "This is for your benefit. You're too old to keep running this place. You should be grateful I'm handling it." "Handling it?" My voice rose. "You stole from me. You lied to me. You used my love for you as a weapon." "I didn't steal anything," he shot back. "You signed the papers willingly. It's all legal." "Legal doesn't mean right." "You're being manipulated," Quincy said. His voice changed, became softer, more like the grandson I thought I knew. "Those employees are using you. They just want to keep their jobs. They don't actually care about you." I looked at him, really looked at him, saw the calculation in his eyes, the way he shifted his approach when the anger didn't work, the way he tried to isolate me from the people who actually cared. "Get out," I said quietly. "Grandma, don't call me that." My voice was steel. "You lost the right to call me that when you changed my locks, when you sold my life out from under me, when you proved that love means nothing to you compared to money." "You'll regret this," he said. The softness was gone, the mask was off. "When you're sitting in some nursing home because you can't take care of yourself anymore, remember that I tried to help you. And when you're lying awake at night," I said, "remember that you destroyed the one person who loved you unconditionally. Remember that you traded your grandmother for $2.8 million. I hope it's worth it." I closed the door in his face, locked it, listened to him stand there for a long moment before his footsteps retreated down the hallway. My hands were shaking, my heart pounded, but I was still standing. 5 days before the sale, Octavia called an emergency meeting. We gathered in my apartment again, all 23 employees plus Octavia. She looked tired, excited. "Megamart is wavering," she said. "Their lawyers are asking questions, lots of questions, about the power of attorney, about the employee terminations, about all the permit issues that keep popping up. They're worried about bad publicity." "Will they back out?" I asked. Hope fluttered in my chest. Dangerous hope. "Maybe," Octavia said, "but we need to push harder. I think it's time to contact the media." The room went quiet. Everyone looked at me. I thought about cameras and questions and strangers judging me, about my shame becoming public. But then I thought about Quincy walking into court with $2.8 million, about Megamart demolishing my store, about 23 people losing their jobs, about 43 years meaning nothing. "Do it," I said. "Contact them all." The local news came the next day. A reporter named Shayna Wells and a camera operator set up in my apartment. I told my story, about Felix and the store and Quincy and the papers I'd signed, about the locks changing and the betrayal and the fight to save what I'd built. Shayna's eyes were wet when I finished. "This is going to run tonight," she said, "and I'm going to make sure it gets picked up by the regional stations too." That night, I watched myself on television, saw my wrinkled face filling the screen, heard my voice telling the world how foolish I'd been, saw Marisol and Dwayne and the others talking about what the store meant to the neighborhood. It should have felt humiliating. Instead, it felt like power. The story went viral. Not huge, not national news, but big enough. Local social media exploded. People I'd never met started showing up at the store with signs, protesting the sale, demanding Megamart leave our neighborhood alone. Quincy called me that night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "You're going to ruin everything. Do you understand that? Everything I've worked for. All because you can't accept that it's time to let go." I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. 2 days before the sale, Octavia called. "Megamart pulled out," she said. I could hear the smile in her voice. Their corporate office decided it wasn't worth the negative attention. They're walking away. I sat down. My legs wouldn't hold me. They're really gone? Really gone. Which means the sale can't go forward. Which gives us time to fight the power of attorney properly. And now we have evidence of Quincy's intent to profit from exploiting you. That strengthens our case considerably. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Rosamond? Octavia asked. Are you okay? We won, I whispered. We won a battle, she corrected. The war isn't over yet, but this is a big victory. I hung up and called Marisol. She called the others. Within an hour, all 23 of them were crammed into my apartment again, laughing, crying, hugging. We'd stopped the sale, stopped Megamart, stopped Quincy from cashing in. But he still had power of attorney, still had control, still had the legal right to try again with a different buyer. So what's next? Dwayne asked. We keep fighting, Octavia said. The hearing is in 5 days. I'll present our evidence, the coercion, the exploitation, the fact that Rosamond didn't fully understand what she was signing. We asked the judge to revoke the power of attorney and restore her rights. What are our chances? I asked. Octavia hesitated. Honestly, 60-40, maybe 70-30 if the judge is sympathetic. But there are no guarantees. The room went quiet. 60-40. Better than nothing. Better than where we'd been 3 weeks ago, but still a gamble. Still a chance we could lose everything. What happens if we lose? I asked. Quincy retains power of attorney, Octavia said. He could find another buyer, or force you to sell the property another way, or even move to have you declared incompetent and placed under conservatorship. My stomach turned. He could put me in a home? Theoretically. If he could prove you weren't capable of caring for yourself, which would be hard given that you've successfully run a business for 43 years. But yes, theoretically, that's within his power. The rage came back. Hotter than before. The thought of Quincy having that much control over my life. Over my future. Over whether I lived in my own home or got warehoused in some facility. Then we make sure we win, I said. Monday night, the night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I could lose. The store, my home, my independence, my dignity. At 2 a.m, I got up, made tea, sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd signed those papers, where I'd made the worst mistake of my life. A knock on the door startled me. I checked the peephole. Marisol stood in the hallway. I opened the door. What are you doing here? Couldn't sleep either, she said. Figured you couldn't either. We sat at the table drinking tea, not talking much, just sitting together in the quiet. Around 3, another knock. Dwayne, then Amani, then Yuki and Chen and Rashad. By 4 a.m, all 23 employees were crammed into my small apartment again. Nobody had been able to sleep. Everybody had come to the same place. We should get some rest, I said. Big day tomorrow. We're not leaving, Marisol said. The others nodded. So we stayed. All of us, talking quietly, drinking coffee as the sun came up, watching the sky turn from black to gray to pink. At 7, Octavia arrived. She wore the same gray suit, carried the same old briefcase. Ready? She asked. I looked around at the faces filling my apartment, these people who'd shown up, who'd fought, who'd refused to let me face this alone. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The courthouse was downtown, a big concrete building that smelled like floor polish and old paper. We filled an entire row of benches outside the courtroom, all 23 employees plus me and Octavia. People stared as we walked past, this small army of determined faces. Quincy was already there. He sat on a bench across the hall with a lawyer in an expensive suit. When he saw us, his face went pale, then red. He stood up, started walking toward us. You can't bring all these people into the courtroom, he said to Octavia. They're witnesses, she replied calmly, and concerned parties. They have every right to be here. This is a family matter. Then you shouldn't have made it their business when you fired them all, Octavia said. The bailiff called us in. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood paneling and fluorescent lights. The judge was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes, Judge Portia Hammond. She looked at our group, then at Quincy and his lawyer, raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The hearing lasted 2 hours. Octavia presented the documents I'd signed, explained how Quincy had isolated me, built false trust, confused me with legal language I didn't understand. She called me to testify. I sat in the witness box and told my story again, about the papers, about not understanding what power of attorney meant, about Quincy's reassurances that it was just estate planning. Quincy's lawyer cross-examined me. Mrs. Petrie, can you read? Yes. And you read the documents before signing? I tried to, but yes or no, please. Yes. So you were aware you were signing legal documents? Yes, but I didn't understand. Thank you. No further questions. He sat down, looking satisfied, like he'd proved I was just a bitter old woman making excuses. Then Octavia called Marisol, and Dwayne, and Amani. One by one, they testified about Quincy's questions about the property value, about how he'd researched gentrification in the neighborhood, about the speed with which he'd moved to change the locks and fire everyone after getting power of attorney. They testified about my character, about how sharp I was, how I ran the business, how I wasn't some confused elderly woman, but someone who'd been deliberately manipulated. Judge Hammond listened to everything. Her face gave nothing away. When the testimonies ended, she looked at Quincy. Mr. Voss, do you have anything to say? Quincy stood, straightened his tie. Your Honor, I only wanted to help my grandmother. She's not getting any younger. The store was becoming too much for her. I was trying to ensure her financial security. By selling her life's work without her input? Judge Hammond asked. With her permission, Quincy corrected. She gave me power of attorney. She understood what that meant. Did she? The judge looked down at the papers in front of her. Because the testimony I've heard suggests otherwise. It suggests a pattern of manipulation, of isolation, of exploiting an elderly woman's love and trust for financial gain. Quincy's face went red. I'm not finished, Judge Hammond interrupted. I've reviewed the timeline. 3 weeks between obtaining power of attorney and changing the locks. 3 weeks between those papers being signed and your grandmother being locked out of her own business. That's not the behavior of someone acting in another's best interest. That's the behavior of someone who knew exactly what they were doing and moved quickly before anyone could stop them. The courtroom was silent. I held my breath. I'm revoking the power of attorney effective immediately, Judge Hammond said. Mrs. Petrie's rights and control over her assets and business are fully restored. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for investigation into potential elder abuse. She brought her gavel down. The sound echoed through the courtroom. I couldn't move. Couldn't process what I'd just heard. Marisol grabbed my hand, squeezed it so hard it hurt. Around us, the employees were crying, laughing, hugging each other. Octavia smiled, a real smile that transformed her whole face. Quincy stood frozen. His lawyer was packing up papers quickly, trying to leave. Mr. Voss, Judge Hammond called out. Quincy turned. Yes? I hope whatever you thought you'd gain from this was worth losing your grandmother's love. Because that's what you've lost. Not money, not property, but something far more valuable that you'll never get back. Quincy's face crumpled. For a second, he looked like the little boy I'd held in the hospital. Then the mask came back. He turned and walked out without looking at me. We spilled out into the hallway, all of us talking at once. Octavia explained that I'd need to file paperwork to officially reclaim control, that it might take a few days, but it was done. I'd won. I'd actually won. That afternoon, we went back to the store. I had my keys. The original keys that had worked for 43 years. I unlocked the door. The alarm didn't beep because Quincy had changed the code. Chen bypassed it in under a minute. We turned on the lights. Everything was exactly as I'd left it 3 months ago. Shelves still stocked, registers still in place, the floor still scuffed, the ceiling still stained, the freezers still humming too loud. It had never looked more beautiful. We opened for business the next day. Word spread through the neighborhood fast. Customers poured in, not just to shop, to hug me, to tell me they were glad I was back. Mrs. Kowalski brought flowers. The Martinez family brought homemade tamales. Even grumpy Mr. Chen from the restaurant next door brought a card that said, "Welcome home." By noon, the store was packed. By evening, we'd done more business than any day in the past 5 years. People wanted to support us, wanted to be part of the story, wanted to show that community still mattered. That night, alone in my apartment, I called Simone. She answered on the third ring. "I heard what happened," she said. Her voice was tight, angry. "Quincy called me. He's very upset." "Good," I said. Silence. Long enough that I thought she'd hung up. "Mom, Shema, he was just trying to help you retire." "He was trying to steal from me," I corrected. "And you know it. You encouraged him. He said you asked him to help me with estate planning. You were part of this." More silence. "I won't apologize for how I raised him," Simone finally said. "I'm not asking you to," I replied. My voice was steady, calm. "I'm telling you that you're not welcome in my life anymore. Either of you. Don't call, don't visit, don't send cards on holidays. We're done." "You can't mean that." "I've never meant anything more in my life." "You chose money over your mother. Quincy chose money over his grandmother. You deserve each other, but you don't get me anymore." I hung up before she could respond. It hurt. God, it hurt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart. But some things hurt worse than loneliness. Betrayal, being used, having your love weaponized against you. I'd rather be alone than be anyone's victim. The store continued. Business was good, better than it had been in years. People came back. Young families moving into the neighborhood discovered us. The employees who'd fought for me became co-owners through a profit-sharing plan Octavia helped me set up. If something happened to me now, they'd inherit the store together. The real family I'd chosen and who'd chosen me. 6 months after the hearing, I was restocking shelves when a young woman walked in. She had dark hair and green eyes. Looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Can I help you?" I asked. She hesitated. "I'm Quincy's sister. Well, half-sister. From my dad's second marriage. My name is Vera." I stepped back, put down the cans I was holding. "I don't want any trouble." "I'm not here to cause trouble," Vera said quickly. "I just wanted to meet you. I heard what happened, what Quincy did. I wanted you to know that not all of us are like him." "Does he know you're here?" "No, we don't really talk. He's not doing well. The district attorney filed charges, elder abuse, fraud. He's looking at possible jail time. Lost his job. His girlfriend left him. Mom won't talk to him either." Part of me felt satisfaction hearing that. The part that was still angry, still hurt. But another part just felt sad. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you deserve to know that there are consequences, that what he did mattered, and because—" She paused, looked around the store. "Because I've heard stories about you my whole life from my dad, about how you helped people, how you cared. I wanted to see if they were true." "And?" "They're true," Vera said. "I can tell just by looking at this place. By the way your employees look at you. By the customers who keep coming in and talking to you like your family." She smiled, a real smile that reminded me of Felix. "Thank you for existing, for being proof that some people are still good." She left before I could respond. I never saw her again. But sometimes I wonder about her, about whether she's okay, whether she's happy, whether she knows that her visit mattered to me more than she'll ever know. That was 3 years ago now. The store still stands. My 23 people still show up every morning. We still serve the neighborhood, still treat everyone who walks through our door like they matter. Quincy pleaded guilty to elder abuse charges and got 2 years probation and had to pay restitution. I used the money to give all my employees bonuses. Simone and I haven't spoken since that last phone call. Sometimes I wonder if I should reach out, try to repair what's broken. But then I remember what she chose. Remember that she valued money more than me, and I let it go. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, If you've ever trusted the wrong person and paid the price, if you've ever had to choose between being a victim and being a fighter, you know what I learned. That blood doesn't make family. Showing up makes family. Standing together when everything falls apart makes family. Refusing to let someone you care about face darkness alone makes family. To anyone fighting their own battle right now, to anyone who's been exploited or betrayed or had their trust used as a weapon against them, you're stronger than you know. You're not as alone as you feel. Your real family is out there. The people who'll stand with you, who'll fight for you, who'll show up at 2 in the morning because they know you can't sleep. Those are your people. Hold on to them. What lesson hit you hardest from this story? And if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have fought back or let it go? Would you have forgiven Quincy or cut him off completely? Tell me in the comments. I want to know your thoughts, your stories, your experiences with betrayal and family and choosing to stand up. Don't stop here. Click the next video on your screen right now and watch another story from our channel. There are more stories of quiet justice and more stories of people who refuse to be victims. More stories that might help you with whatever you're facing. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read everyone. I see you. I hear you, and your story matters just as much as mine. See you in the next one.